Welcome to Congress in Context.
Glad to be here.
So today is April 2, 2026, and we have to start with this, frankly, crazy statistic. The U.S. House of Representatives met for exactly 3 minutes this morning.
3 minutes, yeah.
And the Senate, they also convened and adjourned in exactly 3 minutes.
Right, so we're talking 6 total minutes of floor time for the entire legislative branch today.
Exactly. But, and this is the wild part, if you read today's official congressional record, it is just packed. I mean, it is full of heavy, fiercely partisan legislation and massive national priorities.
Oh, absolutely. It's really the ultimate paradox of modern Washington.
Yeah, so the immediate question we have to ask is, how does the government actually function, and how do these massive political battles actually play out when the room is, effectively empty?
Well, we're so conditioned to think of democracy as this loud, hyper-visible forum, right? Like the shouting, the gavels, the packed chambers on the news.
Right, the C-SPAN highlights.
Exactly. But what you are looking at today is basically a masterclass in procedural sleight of hand. The gears of the federal government are grinding away at top speed, but they're doing it entirely out of the view of those cameras.
And that anomaly is exactly our mission for this deep dive today. We're going to synthesize today's official congressional record to sort of expose the mechanisms operating right beneath the surface.
Yeah, to show how it actually works.
Right. We want to take these dense, honestly, really opaque parliamentary maneuvers and show you, the listener, how the actual business of Washington translates into something highly relevant and really strategic for local communities.
Because the reality is, the true scope of the partisan divide and the bipartisan consensus, for that matter, it isn't always found in those made-for-TV floor speeches.
No, it's really not.
It is buried in the procedural strategy, and it gets meticulously documented in the formal written record, specifically in this seemingly mundane section that's known as the extensions of remarks.
Okay, so I want to dissect this 3-minute Senate session first.
Sure.
Because those 180 seconds in the Senate contained a massive amount of legislative traffic.
Oh, a huge amount.
We're talking about foundational border and homeland security appropriations here. Specifically, they introduced H.R. 71147, which is the consolidated appropriations for the fiscal year.
Right.
And also S4277, the appropriations for U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, ICU.
Yeah, and to understand how bills of that sheer magnitude just get processed in 3 minutes, we really have to look at the mechanics of congressional power.
Okay, so how do they do it?
Well, the majority leader, Senator Thune, utilized 2 classic parliamentary maneuvers here, the motion to table and the invocation of Rule 14.
Let's examine the motion to table first.
Sure. So the House sent over a message regarding H.R. 7147. Senator Thune immediately moved to table that House message. And that motion was agreed to instantly.
Without a single word of debate.
Exactly. 0 debate.
So by using a motion to table, Thune isn't just pausing the legislation, right?
Yeah.
He is kind of weaponizing the clock.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
He is intentionally suffocating any chance for the opposition to get a soundbite on camera or offer a counter-argument that could be, clipped for the evening news.
That is precisely the strategy. A successful motion to table acts as an immediate guillotine to debate. It just clears the floor completely on the majority's terms.
Wow.
But then, Thune executed a second and arguably more significant maneuver with the ICE funding bill, S4277.
Right, Rule for Thief.
Yeah, he used Rule 14. So normally when a bill gets its second reading, the standard procedure is to send it over to the relevant committee.
That is where you have the public hearings, the markups, witness testimonies, all that.
Exactly. The amendments, all the public-facing work. But under Rule 14, a single senator can object to further proceedings.
Okay.
And by lodging that objection, Thune forced the bill to bypass the committee process entirely and just placed it directly onto the legislative calendar.
Wait, I have to challenge the utility of that.
Good.
If the majority leader can just use a motion to table to kill a message, or use Rule 14.5 to skip the committee markup entirely, aren't they just bypassing the core function of the legislative branch?
Well, yeah.
I mean, it feels like they are just hitting fast forward to avoid the messy part of governance, where the public actually gets to see where lawmakers stand on the nuances of ICE funding.
They absolutely are hitting fast forward, and you are highlighting the exact trade-off that party leadership makes.
So it's about control.
Exactly. By skipping the committee process, the majority leadership retains strict, total control over the bill's language. They prevent any rogue amendments from either party that could derail their core intent.
But then the public is completely shut out of the debate.
Right. The public doesn't get to see the arguments play out in a hearing room. But that doesn't mean the debate ceases to exist. It simply changes mediums.
Ah, I see.
When procedural maneuvers stifle the verbal floor debate, the partisan divide over these Homeland Security bills is pushed entirely into the written record.
Meaning, if a senator wants to go on the record for their constituents or, for a future primary challenger, they literally have to write their dissent into the archive since they were denied the microphone.
That is exactly it. If you look at the record for today, Senator Hawley submitted a formal vote explanation.
Okay.
Because Thune's maneuvers moved so fast, there was no recorded roll call vote, just a rapid-fire voice agreement.
Right, the 3 minutes.
Yeah. So Hawley had to formally submit text to the record, stating that had there been a recorded vote, he would have voted nay on H.R. 7147 and nay on the motion to table it.
Let me pause here and explicitly remind you, our listener, that we are not taking a side on the Homeland Security funding debate.
Absolutely not.
Nor are we taking a side on Senator Hawley's stance on ICE appropriations. We are strictly analyzing the source material to reveal the mechanism.
Right. The how, not the what.
Exactly. We are showing you how lawmakers utilize the written record to register their ideological dissent when parliamentary tactics eliminate the opportunity for a physical vote.
And it is a critical dynamic to understand. The machinery of Congress operates heavily on paper precisely when those physical microphones are turned off.
Yeah.
Hawley's written submission is the only official proof of his underlying tension with that rapid-fire floor session.
Which provides a perfect logical bridge to the House's extensions of remarks, I think.
Oh, definitely.
If the floor maneuvers are about silencing the opposition and controlling the immediate legislative calendar, the extensions of remarks seem to be about signaling to allies back home.
Yes.
Like if the main floor proceedings are the national broadcast, the extensions of remarks act like the local news ticker running at the bottom of the screen.
I would actually take that analogy one step further.
Oh.
Unlike a broadcast news ticker that just flashes across the screen and disappears forever, this is a ticker set in stone. The extensions of remarks are bound and archived in the Library of Congress in perpetuity.
Oh, wow. I see what you mean. It is a permanent historical memory.
Exactly.
So let's look at what lawmakers are actually choosing to permanently etch into that memory, starting with energy and industry.
Do it.
While not spoken on the floor, Representative August Pfluger of Texas submitted a statement emphasizing the 50th anniversary of the American Exploration and Production Council, or AXPC. He specifically highlights the Permian Basin in his district, noting it as one of the most productive oil and natural gas fields in the entire world.
Right.
Now, I understand championing local business, but placing an oil trade group's anniversary into the official congressional record feels like pure political theater to me.
I get why you'd say that.
Is there an actual legislative purpose to this? Or is Pfluger just scoring easy points with voters and donors back home in Texas?
Well, it is easy to dismiss it as political theater, but you really have to look at the specific language Pfluger uses here.
What does he say?
He isn't just saying happy anniversary. He is utilizing the written record to build an intellectual framework. He explicitly connects the work of independent producers in his local district to massive federal priorities. He brings up national energy security, global geopolitical stability, and technological ingenuity.
Oh, so he's tying it all together.
Yeah, he points out that the innovation driven by these local companies has actually contributed to lowering carbon dioxide emissions to their lowest levels in decades.
So he is federalizing a local narrative.
Precisely. Pfluger is submitting a philosophical argument into the federal archive.
Right.
He is arguing that local independent industry is the actual engine solving national energy crises, which in turn justifies a deregulatory federal energy policy.
Laying the groundwork.
Exactly. He's laying the groundwork for future committee debates.
Well, if Pfluger is using the written record to argue that local industry solves national energy issues, I am curious if lawmakers use that same local solves national logic for human capital.
They absolutely do.
Because when I look at Representative Smucker's submission in Pennsylvania, it reads exactly like a policy blueprint.
Let's hear it.
While not spoken on the floor, Representative Lloyd Smucker of Pennsylvania submitted a statement emphasizing Wrightsville Elementary School, which was just named a Pennsylvania Blue Ribbon School.
And notice the specific innovation Representative Smucker chose to highlight for the federal record there.
Yeah, he didn't just congratulate their test scores.
No, he detailed their use of the mastery badging system.
Right, the mastery badging system, which tracks student progress based on the actual skills they have acquired, rather than just grading kids based on how much time they sit in the classroom.
Exactly.
It supposedly promotes this intense ownership of their own learning. But again, to play devil's advocate, why does the United States Congress care about the grading rubric of a single elementary school in Pennsylvania?
Because Congress is constantly searching for scalable solutions to national crises.
Okay, that makes sense.
There is a broad bipartisan interest in overcoming educational disparities and closing the achievement gap.
Right.
By detailing the mechanics of the mastery badging system at Wrightsville Elementary in the congressional record, Representative Smucker is essentially submitting a successful local case study to all of his colleagues.
Oh, so it's a template.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When the relevant committees begin drafting multi-billion-dollar federal education reauthorizations or grant programs, they look for working models. Smucker has just permanently archived his district's model as a template for federal policy.
That makes total sense. From institutional blueprints like energy sectors and schools, we can follow this thread directly to the raw human capital that forces those institutions to change in the first place.
You're talking about labor and activism.
Exactly. While not spoken on the floor, Representative Nydia M. Velazquez of New York submitted a statement emphasizing the legacy of Minerva Sola.
The details in this one are incredible.
They really are. Back in 1972, Sola led a grueling 47-day strike at Roosevelt Hospital that eventually resulted in union representation through 1199 SEIU.
And the inclusion of Minerva Sola's story is a profound example of how local activism ripples outward into the federal consciousness.
How so?
Think about the mechanism here. Representative Velazquez is not just honoring a constituent, she is establishing historical precedent.
Right.
Sola's grassroots work in the 1970s laid the foundation for landmark state legislation years later. That includes the Fight for Paid Family Leave and the Safe Staffing for Quality Care Act.
So Velazquez is using the congressional record to demonstrate that modern federal labor rights do not just appear out of thin air in Washington.
No, they don't.
They are built on the backs of local, often brutal community strikes. It legitimizes the struggle by placing it next to federal law.
Exactly. It validates the tactic of the strike on a national level. It reminds current lawmakers of the human cost behind the labor policies they debate every day.
Okay, I understand the strategic value of documenting industry, education, and labor precedent. But I have to ask you about the inclusion of seemingly trivial historical milestones.
I know which one you're going to bring up.
You probably do. While not spoken on the floor, Representative Mark DeSaulnier of California submitted a statement emphasizing the rich history of Martinez, California, which is celebrating its 150th anniversary.
Right.
And the details he submitted are highly specific. He notes it is the home of iconic conservationist John Muir, the father of the National Park Service.
A great detail.
But then he points out it currently boasts the largest bocce club in the entire country. And he even claims Martinez is the legendary birthplace of the martini.
A martini in the largest bocce club in America.
Yes. And my question is, why? Why occupy space in the exact same legal document that holds the trillion-dollar federal budget and the ICE Homeland Security Appropriations with trivia about a local bocce court?
It seems jarringly out of place, I agree. But you have to consider the fundamental psychology of representation.
Okay.
The congressional record is, at its core, the daily diary of the American Republic.
It's daily diary. I like that.
If it only contained the austere partisan warfare over border funding and parliamentary procedure, it would be a completely incomplete record of the nation.
That's very true.
By inserting the cultural identity of Martinez, its Bosch courts, its legendary cocktails, its connection to John Muir, Representative DeSaulnier is immortalizing his town's local pride.
Right.
He is forcing the federal government to acknowledge the unique character of the communities it actually governs, not just their tax brackets.
The Diary of the Republic. I really like that framing because it explains why the tone shifts so dramatically when that diary has to record the ultimate cost of that representation.
Yes, it is a stark shift.
The extensions of remarks serve as this profound, deeply bipartisan space for national mourning and gratitude.
They do.
While not spoken on the floor, Representative Pablo Jose Hernandez of Puerto Rico submitted a statement emphasizing the life of Major Ariana G. Linse Savino. She was a 31-year-old Air Force officer and pilot who passed away while deployed.
The details of her service command immediate respect. She logged over 300 combat hours. She was the chief of current operations for the 99th Air Refueling Squadron, managing these incredibly complex night operations.
Wow.
And Representative Hernandez specifically noted her legacy as a role model for young women and Latino youth aspiring to aviation.
That's a beautiful tribute.
It is, and in that exact same record, he also submitted a statement to formally welcome home the 204th Transportation Company to Puerto Rico from their deployment in the Middle East.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, specifically acknowledging the silent sacrifice of the families who supported them from afar.
It is such a sobering contrast to the political gamesmanship we discussed earlier.
Completely.
We also see the record used to recognize the local heroes who transition back into their communities.
Right.
While not spoken on the floor, Representative Tim Walberg of Michigan submitted a statement emphasizing the service of Michael Fry, who was named Veteran of the Month.
Tell us about his background.
So Fry spent 13 years in the Marine Corps as a signals intelligence analyst, deploying to both Iraq and Afghanistan. And now he has brought those highly specialized skills back to Kalamazoo, Michigan, working as a criminal intelligence analyst to combat transnational organized crime.
It's amazing. And, if you synthesize this entire deep dive, if you step back and look at the architectural structure of today's source material, you are left with a surprisingly complete picture of what Congress actually is.
Yeah.
We began this analysis by looking at a dry, 3-minute, highly partisan Senate floor session. A session where crucial debate over the Department of Homeland Security was totally suppressed by the strategic deployment of Rule 14th and motions to table.
Right. The political war was essentially waged through silence.
Exactly. The fast-forward button to avoid the messy reality of governance.
Yeah.
But then you contrast that sterile 3-minute void with the deeply human, universally respectful extensions of remarks.
That's a completely different world.
It is. The floor might be where the parliamentary chess match is played, but the written record is where lawmakers reveal the connective tissue of the nation.
I love that.
From grieving the loss of fallen soldiers like Major Savino, to establishing federal blueprints for education, to laying the ideological groundwork for energy policy. The written record proves that the actual scope of American governance is incredibly vast and deeply localized.
If you are listening right now, consider the journey we have just taken through a single day's record.
It's been a ride.
We started with the procedural gridlock and the weaponized clock of the Senate floor. And we followed the mechanisms of power all the way to the oil fields of Texas, a grueling hospital strike in 1970s New York, and the local boss courts of California.
Yeah?
We have seen how a room that was empty for all but 6 minutes actually contains the full weight of local industries, historical milestones, and profound personal sacrifices.
It really is something.
I want to explicitly remind you that you can verify all of this yourself. You can look up these specific remarks and read the full, unabridged congressional record for today's date, April 2026, by visiting congress.gov.
And as you process how these national priorities intersect with local realities, I want to leave you with one final, seemingly quiet inclusion from today's record.
Oh, what's that?
Consider a woman named Frances Keyes from McGee, Mississippi. Her 100th birthday was honored in today's record by Representative Michael Guest.
100 years old, wow.
Yeah, the record notes she spent 70 years of her life as a Sunday school teacher.
70 years.
And when historians a century from now pull this document from the archives, they will see a nation that appears hopelessly divided over border funding and paralyzed by parliamentary procedure, yet completely united in its desire to formally honor a 100-year-old Sunday school teacher from Mississippi.
That is incredible.
It raises a provocative question for you to mull over. Is the vicious gridlock we see on the evening news simply a procedural illusion?
That is a staggering thought.
Isn't it?
It suggests that the empty, silent chamber we saw this morning isn't actually a symbol of institutional decay. It is just the staging area.
Exactly.
The true heart of American governance,
Right.
the part that actually endures, lies in these quiet, highly specific local connections, permanently waiting in the archive.
It fundamentally changes how you view an empty room.
It certainly does. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us.